Today's show is sponsored by Velocity. Digital transformation has never been more important. Built natively on the Salesforce platform, Velocity is a 3-time Forbes Cloud 100 company that enables companies to achieve faster business agility and time to value from the cloud across digital and traditional channels. Learn more at velocity.com.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday and welcome to the 27th episode of Let's Do Lunch, where we talk about the business of entertainment on Tuesdays, and today is Tuesday. It's also Cinco de Mayo, so I hope you guys have that in your minds, maybe a Taco Tuesday night. We're going to have Vanessa Flaherty come on in just a minute, but as a reminder, folks, please introduce yourself in the chat. We've had a lot of fun with people getting to know each other in chat, and then also in the chat, you'll need to change the drop down from just panelists to panelists and attendees so that everybody will be able to see your posts. Also, if you have questions for Vanessa and me, please put them in the Q&A. You'll see there are two buttons down. There's Q&A and there's chat. We'll try to keep track of what's going on in the chat, but it's a lot easier if you put your questions in Q&A because the chat gets filled up pretty heavily. Okay, before I have Vanessa come on, I want to just talk a little bit about her background. She's Executive Vice President of Management for Digital Brand Architects, where she's responsible for overseeing a world-class portfolio of fashion, beauty, and lifestyle influencers, implementing strategic counsel to both her clients and her team. Digital Brand Architects was acquired by United Talent Agency in recent years. And it's really a pleasure to have Vanessa on. Will you please join us?
Sure. Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I guess I'd be remiss if I just didn't ask you, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, I don't even know what week it is anymore, but, you know, holed up at home with baby and husband and just trying to navigate this new world with our team. Lots of Zoom calls. So, you know, happy to be here.
Yeah, I think Zoom fatigue is definitely something that's hitting me. I feel like at the end of some of these days that my head's going to explode from all the video I've been on.
I know, I'm a little sick of looking at myself through this lens. So
well, I love your background today, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I change up my background every so often. This is our beautiful LA office that I'm hoping to go back to soon.
Go to again one someday?
Someday. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we moved in, my company moved into a fantastic new office in Century City on March 3rd. And of course, we were out on March 13th. So I spent less than 10 days in that office. All right, let's jump into it. The question I wanted to start with is, how do you describe to people what you do?
I mean, it's gotten easier and easier over the years. I think for about the first 5 years of what I was doing, my mom thought I was still a publicist, which is what I used to do in my former life. And she did not understand the concept of what an influencer was. And I tried to explain it to her as it related to like the celebrities she saw on like Us Weekly and People, but still really could not wrap her head around it. But I mean, you know, we are a management company, just like any other sort of traditional management company for traditional folks in entertainment. We just happen to specialize in digital first talent.
And there's also a female, a women orientation to the company as well, correct? Or?
Yes, correct. We're female founded, and I would say about almost 95% of our clients are females. So we're very focused on making sure that we're elevating the female voice and helping them expand their brands and their businesses, and quite frankly, helping women earn money. I don't think that's talked about enough. I don't think that people feel comfortable with women talking about money and making money. And we've got, you know, a number of clients who are, you know, millionaires many times over, which is obviously the goal for everyone. And they've been able to support their families and buy homes and employ, you know, a number of employees. And that's just what makes us sort of come to the office every day.
And are there certain verticals that you guys focus on? I mean, I know I mentioned a few just in your bio: fashion, beauty, lifestyle. Are those your core verticals?
They are, but we've expanded since then. I would say that, you know, fashion and beauty were certainly our bread and butter in early days. It was one of the verticals that sort of, you know, first emerged in the digital space. I mean, we started in an era before Instagram, and so we were really sort of working with street style bloggers back then. That was really like the currency of what had sort of like, when people started to first create content and put it out there on the internet, those are the people that were first influencing others. So we saw that and really wrapped our arms around it and realized that this could, you know, this could be a business. These women are influencing people's purchasing decisions more than a magazine. So we, you know, obviously invested very heavily in fashion and beauty, but since then have really expanded into other verticals, including food, which is one of our fastest growing categories, home, fitness and wellness, parenting. And then we have also diversified in terms of platforms. So again, you know, no longer just blog, but obviously YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, obviously, and then helping them expand their businesses, you know, both online and offline as well.
I mean, I think a lot of people these days think of influencers as, you know, young girls and boys, you know, or at least younger. Or, you know, how do you guys kind of approach it from an age demographic?
I mean, we work with people of all ages. I mean, certainly we've been doing this now for almost a decade, or a little over a decade. So a lot of our clients have sort of like aged up. They've become, you know, parents and, like I said, homeowners and business owners, and are running multiple companies. So we're definitely working with people who are not sort of that traditional, very young millennial Gen Z, but we also represent that group of folks as well, just because they're sort of the next generation, and, you know, obviously approach content and brand building in a very different way.
What is the challenge for an influencer who, you know, might have made his or her name, you know, in their 20s, to evolve to kind of doing something similar or making a living as an influencer in their 30s, 40s, 50s, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what we do in terms of strategy and advice and counsel is helping them develop their long-term career path. So, you know, they might not want to share every detail of their life when they're in their 30s and 40s. They might not want to create content at the cadence that they are used to creating it, or being on their phones constantly share. So it's really about figuring out, well, what else is sort of, what other value are providing to the world? What kind of businesses can you launch off of your influence? And so we've helped them to sort of you know, create new arms and legs to their business that doesn't just rely on them, you know, shooting themselves, photographing themselves, or posting things on TikTok. So whether that's, you know, launching a book, a brand of your own, whether that's standalone or in collaboration with other companies. We've got clients who've launched their own startups and raised money to sort of move into the digital space. So it really depends on the client.
Yeah, when you and I spoke a few days ago, we talked a little bit about what you guys are doing kind of in the retail, you know, on the retail front, and, you know, helping your talent to develop new businesses. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I think it's fascinating what you guys are doing in that space.
Yeah, thanks. We launched DBP Digital Brand Products in May of 2015. So it's now been 5 years. And we've done collectively about 80 brand launches. So whether that's a co-brand with an influencer and a retailer or a brand, or a multi-year licensing deal to a standalone brand that we've helped them launch direct to consumer. We've done a number of those, which has been really exciting. And there's been, you know, obviously a huge appetite around influencer-led brands.
Well, the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is I actually do a lot of work with a lot of influencers myself, and I typically work with influencers in the gaming and esports space, doing their Twitch deals, Facebook deals, Mixer, Caffeine on occasion, and, you know, the kind of deals that we're putting together require a massive commitment. I mean, my guys, typically they're guys, there are a few girls in the mix too, are live streaming 40-hour weeks. I mean, it's just pretty taxing. I'm curious kind of how you guys see and manage that fatigue and that kind of the need for influencers to kind of constantly be on.
Yeah, I mean, again, that kind of goes back to what I mentioned before, where we're sort of like sitting with our clients and sort of figuring out how can they continue to grow their business, how can they continue to earn revenue without having to constantly be producing themselves. So again, it's sort of diversifying your business so that you're not sort of reliant upon whether you pick up your phone and post something on Instagram stories that day. So it's sort of the idea of making money in your sleep. So we're always trying to figure out like what are those opportunities that they can diversify their business into.
Yeah. So another element of what you've done very successfully is to scout and develop talent. Talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you scout and develop influencer talent?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a team of about 20 managers, so they're always looking. We also have a talent scout within the team, and then we work very closely, obviously, with our colleagues at UTA to sort of identify either up-and-coming talent or talent that might be looking for new representation. But on the developmental side, for us, it's really important that we're working with people who are doing something different. We obviously don't want to cannibalize our own existing clients, so we're looking for people who have a new spin on creating content or speaking to a demographic that isn't being spoken to right now. And we weigh obviously the benefits of bringing on somebody who might be a little bit smaller, who might not be making a lot of money in the beginning, but who we know that we can develop and build a trajectory for them, carve out a niche for them. We've had a lot of success in that.
Going back to the scouting part, I want to dive in a little bit deeper on this. Like, which platforms specifically you're looking at? Are there certain metrics that you're analyzing and data to kind of, for someone to hit a threshold where you think that they could need representation, or you guys can really help them further their careers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're not like hard and fast on thresholds, but we're definitely looking at analytics in terms of like how quickly are they growing. So if they are really small, are they growing at a tick that seems to indicate that they'll, quickly, reach a certain number of followers. We also look at things like engagement level, which is becoming incredibly important. Things like conversion are also becoming more and more important. It doesn't really matter anymore if you have, 1 million followers, but how many of those followers are actually, moving into action based on what it is that you're talking to them about or asking them to do. So we dive into all of those sorts of metrics. And then obviously content is really important for us. Again, putting something out into the universe that isn't there, that is really compelling, that actually adds value. There's so many influencers right now, and there's so many people doing the exact same thing. How can you differentiate yourself? Obviously looking for people who have some sort of incoming business or interest. It's very difficult to work with people who maybe are not on the radar of the buyers and the decision makers in the industry. I mean, obviously we do a lot of that for them, but it's obviously nice to see people who have already started to who understand the business, the ins and outs of marketing themselves and working with companies, so that we're not sort of starting from ground zero.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds like it's a bit of a art and a science. How much of it kind of it's just your gut feeling that this is going to be someone who's going to
It's definitely a mix of magic and logic. I'm definitely more on the logic side of things, but I have leaned in more, and especially during during what we're all going through quarantine right now. I'm like, now's definitely the time to experiment and try something new and see if something hits, because we don't really know what is going to work in 6 months. We don't know what's going to work in 6 weeks. What was once very popular and what everybody was really attracted to might not be the same thing when this is all over. So we're definitely looking to, take more risks right now. But yeah, it's definitely a gut feeling. I mean, if I say that I think someone's going to be a star, I know that they're going to be a star, and we'll do everything in our power to make that happen.
I was looking over and you've had some, there's some great folks who you've helped to develop and scouted. Amy Song, Chriselle Lim, Julia Engel. I mean, can you talk about any of those specifically? Yeah. I'd love to hear kind of the process,
Sure. Yeah, those are all my clients. I have a handful of clients that I still represent, although a big chunk of what I do is overseeing the entire team, and I'm a partner at the company as well. So there's a lot of just operations and business, all the boring stuff. But the fun stuff is managing my clients still. Chriselle's a great example. She was a YouTube native client when we first signed her about, I would say, 7 or 8 years ago. And she really wanted to pivot into the fashion space more. She had started a little bit in beauty and wanted to really focus on developing relationships with some of the bigger fashion houses, and sort of diversifying her business. So we worked with her over, a number of years to really get those sort of introductions, those relationships built. And since then she's built, a really colossal business. She's one of the early adopters of, you have to spend money to make money. And she really, really early on invested in building a team. She knew that she couldn't do it all alone, nor did she want to. She was, at that point getting married and now has 2 children, and wanted to do so many other things with her time that, she wanted to build up a team. And, right now she has a team of 10 on the influencer side that help her create content and manage her projects that we, facilitate and negotiate for her. And she also has launched 2 other businesses in addition to her already, very popular and successful influencer business. One of them is Sync Studios, which is a production company. So she helps brands create digital first content for them. And then she recently launched Boomo, which is a childcare and education-based startup. So she raised money for a concept that she felt really, really strongly about, which was, again, her as a mother, bringing education-based childcare to millennial parents. So that's she basically has 3 jobs right now in addition to her personal life, but we've helped her navigate sort of all of those stages, all of those steps, helped her launch her blog, helped her expand her Instagram, helped her now with her TikTok, which has really taken off, just again, to make sure that she's always, 3 steps ahead of the curve, and building a business that will be long-term and sustainable.
Wow. That's a lot to digest, but very, very impressive. And I want to kind of dive in on a couple of things you said in there, unpack a few things. I mean, one is just on the platform side of things. I mean, you mentioned, TikTok's really taking off. How do you guys, with so many platforms, and, I heard someone compare it to having kids the other day, like, you want to give all of your attention to every kid, but at the end of the day, you've got to kind of spread it across, and you try to do that as evenly as possible. How many platforms can a creator realistically be on and do justice to those platforms? And how do you evaluate, when you say you need to be on this platform or not?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a number. I think it's evaluating your strengths and what you're good at. So obviously, TikTok, that sort of exploded in recent months, and we've had a slew of our clients saying, should I be on TikTok? Should I not be on TikTok? What do I do? And it's really about like, well, what are you adding to TikTok? Like, how can you translate your content, your personality into something that people want to see on TikTok? If that's not the platform for you, by all means, please avoid it. Like, nothing is worse than seeing like a really cringy person. I mean, and that happens like in all industries. I mean, there's so many celebrities who have joined TikTok that I'm like, oh, just please go away. I don't want to see that. And the same applies for our space as well. So, if you're going to do it, I want to make sure our client is doing it really well. If they're able to dedicate the time and the energy, the resources, and the creative juices to do it. We want to make sure that we're able to monetize it for them, because at the end of the day, like if you're going to put in all this, all these hours towards something, you want to make sure that you're getting something out of it. And so it's very specific to the individual and the circumstances. I think, like you said, with these platforms being children, TikTok is right now everyone's favorite child.
It's certainly my daughter's favorite platform, and she's allowed.
I mean, even mine. At first, I thought it was the world's most annoying thing, and now I'm like, one more video, and like I can't put my phone down. I'm like, just one more. But, and we've got clients who, have obviously created a following on a different platform and who have really successfully transitioned over into TikTok. Like I mentioned, Chriselle, or our client, Brittany Xavier, who's really exploded on that platform, even though she has a really healthy business elsewhere. And then others who just haven't quite figured it out yet. And, it's going to take some time. It might just not be the platform for them. We help them navigate that and what it's going to look like. And we work very, very closely with the TikTok team over there as well, to sort of understand best practices and what are sort of the open like categories or niches in which they can potentially go into. Because again, it's a lot of dance video, it's a lot of voiceover, it's a lot of like pranks. So if that's not for you, what can you bring to the table that might interest people?
Yeah. On the brand side of the equation, talk a little bit about how you guys are working with brands and helping them, match with the right influencers and create the most effective campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are, we start every single discussion with an evaluation of what their goals are. Do you have KPIs? Are you expecting a certain amount of certain ROI on this campaign? And for everyone that's different, obviously. Some are for, awareness building, some are for conversion, some are for engagement, some are for conversation. So we make sure that we identify that with them so that we're able to make recommendations that are going to hit on those KPIs. Because we represent over 180 influencers and so many different, kinds of influencers and in different verticals, we're able to make sort of very strategic recommendations as opposed to just like, here's my list of talent, pick and choose whoever you want. So that's an important conversation, I would say, first step to have.
Okay. One other thing I'm curious about too is, and I've seen this done really effectively in the gaming and esports space, as well as in the music space, is agencies creating collaborations between kind of an up-and-coming influencer and a real established influencer, and really moving the needle for some of the newer folks in the space. Are you seeing the same thing, and do you guys utilize some of the same techniques?
Definitely. I mean, one of the great things if you do sign on with DBA is you're able to tap into the rest of our clients, and we're able to put together some really compelling collaborations and make connections and build relationships. And so we're definitely always looking to leverage that. Obviously it makes sense for both parties, but to leverage some of our bigger clients for our sort of more emerging and developmental talent. We're also doing that with brands and media platforms as well. So again, part of, as managers, we're not always hyper-focused on just how are we making money. It's really about the long-term strategy. And a lot of times the long-term strategy involves a lot of collaboration and development in the early stages. And so that will be, either in terms of helping them grow on certain platforms and, partnering with a brand or a media property that has a bigger following than them. Sometimes it's more about association and alignment with them. So if they're looking to move into a different vertical or sort of go up or down in terms of the trajectory, we're always looking at those as well. And so we'll take on those kinds of opportunities. Again, they may or may not be paid, but we know that there's going to be value at the end of the day.
Great. We are getting a lot of questions from people, so I want to make sure that we're getting those into the mix here. And in fact, I got a question by email this morning from somebody anticipating this session. Wow. So Jake Gold wrote to me, and Jake said, how are brands that have personal appearances tied to their campaigns with influencers looking to offer alternatives to the consumer with those kinds of things not being available now or in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in the first few weeks of when this all happened and, stay-at-home orders came down, there was a lot of just like panic and frenzy and a lot of pausing on things. So we obviously, live events and personal appearances and tours and all of that makes up a big chunk of our business. So in the early weeks, it was sort of just like, let's just wait and see. Nobody knew how long this would last, what would be sort of the result of all of this. So a lot of companies definitely were a little bit in panic mode and paused. And then, cut to a few weeks after that, we realized that this is going to be going on for, at least a couple more months, if not longer. Let's figure out how we can get creative together and pivot some of these in-person opportunities. So obviously, lives have seen a huge increase. So we've been pivoting a lot into IG Live, IGTV, anything obviously that can just take place from the comforts of someone's home and can be broadcasted out to their followers and hundreds of thousands of other individuals. We actually even created the TV guide of lives. Actually, about a few weeks ago, we launched Your Live Guide, which is a hub for all live content, and anybody can upload their live. So brand, media property, celebrity. We had Michelle Obama upload hers, just saying.
Cool.
And
cool.
it's just a one-stop destination where you can find information, bookmark, and just make sure that you're able to tune in because, it's a new way of consuming content. Everyone is always saying we're all on our phones constantly right now, but we're also, living our lives and working from home and parenting from home. So sometimes you miss those opportunities and you can't tune in when you had originally planned. So now it's definitely helping people sort of keep that organized and finding a place to consume this new content.
Cool. And can you repeat the name of the guide and let people know where they can find the guide?
Sure. It's Your Live Guide. And I believe it's just yourliveguide.com.
Perfect. Okay, let's follow. There's a question from Karen Allen. Karen has been on the show actually on Fridays, but she is an expert at live streaming for musicians. So she's asking some really smart questions here about live streaming. I guess you kind of touched on this, but I'll go through her questions and then you can answer. Where are influencers live streaming? 2, are they monetizing their stream, and if so, how? And then 3, are they growing audiences on those streams or just streaming to existing followers?
So I would say the majority of our clients are streaming on Instagram, Instagram Live, which what used to be something that people did occasionally. And I would see maybe like 1 or 2 at the top of my queue on Instagram stories is now literally, 15, 20. It's just like an endless stream of lives. So I would say that's definitely a very popular platform. And then they're also saving those lives onto IGTV or into their highlights so people can revisit. What was the second question?
The second question is, are they monetizing the stream? And if so, how?
A lot of them are part of branded partnerships, so they're monetizing in that way. And there is some monetization opportunities that are rolling out through some of these platforms very soon. We have some clients in some alpha and beta testing right now. So that's definitely, I believe, has been a big priority for some of these platforms to sort of pump that up on the queue essentially and get that going.
And then on the audience question, are you seeing them growing audiences on the streams, or are they just streaming to existing followers?
It depends on how they're marketing. I mean, if they are, talking about the live and co-sharing it and cross-promoting it with other people, they're definitely seeing growth. My client, Ami Song, has been doing live workouts since this all started every Tuesday and Thursday. So obviously her existing audience is, has been trained to know that that's when it's going to happen, but she's been doing it with a variety of different trainers who also have social media followings. So they've been able to cross-pollinate the audiences that way. And then, when there's regrams and shares, and obviously she has a very engaged, a following of a lot of influencers and celebrities, so that's getting shared. So there's a lot of cross marketing happening in this area.
Do you think this is a tipping point for live streaming, or are we going to see people, that this is kind of the height and it'll mellow a little bit when we go back to people being able to gather, in person?
I mean, it's hard to say because we don't know when people are going to be able to gather. I mean, I would say probably soonest is 2021. So we're still, quite a ways off. And even then it's, what's the comfort level? I think that the way people are going to attend events and consume content will probably be fundamentally changed from here on out. So I think people are going to, what they may have once found is just kind of like a novelty, or even an annoyance, is now kind of becoming ingrained in their daily lives. So I don't think this is going away anytime soon.
Okay, let's take a question from David Bloom. David is a reporter at Forbes and for Tube Filter, knows the space really well. He says, how are your influencers in travel, luxury, and lifestyle evolving their output to accommodate the changes we're all facing?
Yes. They are definitely evolving, definitely pivoting, and testing out new strategies right now. The influencers that really focused on, exotic travels and being front row at amazing fashion shows and really had that aspirational life and had really built an audience that was dedicated to following along on that, their content has really fundamentally changed, and they've had to pivot and figure out new strategies and new ways to talk to their audiences, and having to do that from the confines of their own home. For a lot of them, that's very uncomfortable and very different and new to them. And some of them maybe didn't know what to do in those early days, but I would say that, now obviously, knowing that this is, our new normal, and having worked with, their teams to understand just new areas, new verticals that they can move into. The good thing is that we've always, tried to help our clients diversify their content and their businesses. So, we don't work with anybody who is strictly travel or strictly high fashion. I mean, these folks are known for bringing you into their lives, and no one's life is 100% any one category. Your life might be jetting off to the Dior show in Paris, but it's also, in your bathroom at your hotel doing your skincare routine, or talking about your eczema and drinking celery juice and how you make that. So there's, they're sharing their lives, and their life might not be as glamorous as it once was, but it's still their lives, and their audiences are there for it.
Okay, let's do this. Laura, could you put up the poll? We have 5 questions that we're going to ask the audience to respond to. And folks, we understand, that not everybody is a brand marketer here, and some of the questions are talking about kind of your utilizing influencers, your thoughts on that. But just do your best to please answer. We're interested in everybody's responses, so everyone, please go ahead, and we will turn back to this in about 10 minutes. Okay. Michael Holton asked the question, are micro-influencers still growing widely, or have things coalesced back to the more popular, I guess by popular, bigger mega influencers?
Mm-hmm. We don't represent a ton of micro-influencers unless they're definitely like on the developmental side. And even then, I don't know if they would constitute this like 2 to 50,000 followers that you guys have sort of deemed, which, I mean, everyone has a different sort of metric to look at these things. So I don't know that, I can't say definitively that, they are growing still or have not grown. But I do know that micro-influencers and some of those sort of like more mid-tier influencers are some of the best at converting an engagement. And so they definitely provide value in this marketplace, especially right now. So I would imagine that they're still thriving.
Yeah, where do you think the best role for micro influencers is? Like, I mean, we've actually used it pretty effectively in marketing industry conferences, and utilizing speakers at the events who have their own networks and getting the word out. I mean, that's kind of one example, but it seems like there are situations that are really well serviced by a campaign of micro influencers.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, definitely when you're looking to, reach a hyper engaged audience, I think micro influencers are definitely key. Like I said, they're following maybe smaller in size, but for the most part, they're, very highly engaged, want to participate in the conversation, take those recommendations really seriously, are there to, for click through and conversion and call to action. They're also great when you are maybe working on, for more awareness building, if you're working on with a smaller, budget constraints, but you want to get product into the hands of many. Micro influencers are great for that because they don't necessarily always demand these larger fees or any fee at all, really, because they're just looking to break into the industry or are excited to share this information with their audiences.
Okay, I love this next question because it kind of is in my area of coverage. And actually, we had Damon Lau on the show last Wednesday, who's UTA's head of esports and gaming. Would have been a great question to ask Damon. But with the explosive, Mark Patterson asks, with the explosive growth of esports and gaming, are you seeing a sharp rise in female influencers in that space? Are you seeing more brand opportunities for them?
We don't represent anybody in that space. We've always been, advocates of do what you know how to do very well. So we definitely are staying in our lane when it comes to that. But just in terms of, what I've seen in the greater marketplace, I have seen a rise in female influencers in that area.
Yeah, and by the way, just referencing Mark, my conversation with Damon last week, they are actively, UTA is actively looking and taking a role in diversification of the esports gaming space. They think it is a very important initiative and have launched a number of very significant women gamer esports talent in recent years. Okay, here's a question from Carolyn Rauch. Hey, Carolyn, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. You mentioned that as influencers age, they have to diversify. What is your role in that diversification? Are you involved in these new businesses and books, creative endeavors, or do other agencies handle that?
We're involved in all of that. So we manage their brands, their businesses 360. Obviously, in certain instances, we'll bring in outside agents to work on some of these more specific projects. So we work with a lot of different lit agents and obviously, lit agents, TV and film agents, licensing agents. And obviously now that we've been acquired by UTA, we have a very open door into all of their resources and departments, which has been great. We've been able to cross-collaborate a lot to get some of these ideas off the ground. But we're hands-on in sort of the idea ideation and development stages of all of these projects. When our clients are launching new businesses, we're involved in those as well. That may look different client to client, but we are definitely involved in helping them to sort of navigate these new brand extensions, how they play into their existing businesses, into other new businesses, and how we're able to help them sort of scale and monetize those.
I keep looking over here to the chat because a lot of people are dropping comments in the chat that are really interesting. But let me go back to the Q&A, and there's a follow-up question from Karen Allen on this live streaming questions that she asked earlier, and that is, what are you looking for in a live streaming platform before you recommend one to an influencer client? And I might add something to that question too, because I'm kind of curious about innovation and feature sets around platforms in general. And are there things that, you guys are, monetization you mentioned earlier, is that a key component, and the types of monetization being offered? Are there interactivity features that you're looking for? Audience size, obviously. Kind of how do you evaluate?
Yeah, I mean, we're evaluating all of those things, and certainly at different stages. You mentioned monetization, which, once you get to a certain, I would say, audience size or cadence of live streaming, you're going to obviously look to figuring out how you can offset the time and energy that you're putting into that, and being able to leverage all of that success into a monetary opportunity. But that might not be something that's necessarily at the forefront of someone's decision into getting into that platform, or isn't going to be their main priority. So it just really depends on the talent and what they're looking to get out of that particular platform.
Okay, let's take a question from Ebony Tay. Ebony makes a comment: as brands approach my work with a great creative team, I'm not sure, maybe but I'll go to the question. Can you name 3 most important points to help brands with brand integration?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Ebony, why don't you, if you could expand on that question, please do, and we'll come back to it, and we'll go on to another question here. Let's see. August Miller notes, creating a Facebook event page for live, whether on Insta, Twitch, Facebook, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, etc., really helps planning, tracking, inviting friends, and extra visibility. More of a comment than a question, but any reactions to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we've had a lot of clients who feel like people have Facebook has sort of fallen to the wayside for a lot of people, especially as, Instagram gained popularity and now TikTok. But we've actually have a lot of clients who have been able to build really compelling communities on Facebook. Facebook groups is another tool that we are huge fans of. They're able to cull together people who have very specific interests and, activate conversations and engage with them in a really meaningful way. And, they're there because they want to be there. It's not just a passive follow or a like. It's, you've taken the time to actually, a lot of these are invite only. You've taken the time to request an invitation. You're visiting it on a regular basis. You're posting your own comments and information, your own questions. So it's a little bit more of a two-way street. But that's a really good point about the lives.
Terrific. I have an interesting question, and I know that UTA had a whole summit on digital humans last year when we were still getting together face to face. What's your thought on digital characters, digital humans, and the viability of that in the influencer space?
You mean like AI influencers?
Yeah, like Michaela, I guess, is one, right? I mean, there are some folks out there, right? They've made a name, right?
They definitely. I mean, I think that it kind of felt like a novelty, and nobody really knew whether it was legitimate or not, and whether or not people wanted to show up for it and engage with these influencers. I think that a few of them have really established themselves and have really created a business around it. I feel like it's not as popular, at least not in our world, quite as much or quite as it could have been. And I haven't really seen a conversation really bubble up now that we are sort of all at home, and it would make logical sense that would be something that would, the popularity of that would see an uptick. But who knows what's to come.
Right. Okay, Nick Blake has kind of a fun question. What's been your favorite or more surprising experience working with influencers, artists?
My favorite or most surprising? I mean, my favorite is always seeing them bring an idea to life and really being part of that journey. Um, you know, so in the early stages of what we were doing, nobody took it seriously. Nobody thought that these were legitimate, talent or artists. And so to see in such a short period of time, and really in 10 years and less for a lot of our clients, we haven't been managing this entire time. It's been really exciting to see them to be able to create businesses and, evolve their brands and their book of business so significantly. So being part of that is just always exciting and fun.
Okay, we'll take a couple more questions, and then Laura, if you can put up the poll in just a minute, we'll turn to the poll results. Ebony clarified her question here, and it is, how do your influencers need to keep in mind when promoting a brand or integrating their products?
Got it.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. I mean, always keeping keeping in mind whether or not the integration is organic to you and to your audience. There's so much money being thrown around, so many opportunities out there, so many brands looking to get into this space, whether or not it makes sense. We see a lot of really wild and really out of this world sort of things come through, and especially more now than ever during all of this pandemic. A lot of brands are looking to leverage influencers because they really have no other choice at this point. They're, all of their other sort of marketing channels have kind of been put on hold. So we're seeing a lot of stuff come through, and a lot of things that are not necessarily the traditional, fashion, beauty, CPG brands, which have seen their businesses, very severely impacted right now. So even though we're seeing these opportunities come through, we're seeing interest from a lot of these companies. For us, the number one thing that we think about is, does this even make sense with my client? Because the minute you promote something or endorse something or integrate it into your content that doesn't make sense, that doesn't feel authentic, that doesn't feel legitimate, your audience is going to call you out on that. We're in obviously a very heavy cancel culture right now, more than ever. And if you lose your audience, then you have nothing else to work with. So we're very sensitive to that, and our clients even more so.
Okay. Laura, let's go ahead and put the poll results up and we can chat about it. I also just want to give a shout out to our friends at Velocity for sponsoring, supporting the show. Really appreciate it, guys. And we'll be having a Velocity speaker on a session a week from today. So looking forward to that. Okay, turning to the poll here, which just best describes the industry you work in? 44% say entertainment, which is not surprising since today is our Future of Entertainment Day. We have a theme in each day. Yesterday was the business of streaming. Tomorrow's the business of games. So it's an interesting mix here of music, technology, games, and brand advertising. What do you think the primary goal should be when working with an influencer? Number one, increase brand awareness and reach. Number two, increase sales and or conversion rates. Number three, improve social media presence or increase followers and engagement. What do you think? I mean, they're pretty even, actually. I mean, they're within a couple of percentage points.
Yeah,
is that a surprising result or?
No, it's not surprising. It's actually pretty on par with the mix of opportunities and interest that we see. Which is great because we have a mix of those clients. I mean, not everyone's forte is to convert, a post into sales, and not everyone's is to reach a larger audience because they might be more micro or niche. So it seems pretty on par. I would say that in having conversations with a lot of our, brand and agency partners in the last few weeks, I would say that sales and conversion has kind of skyrocketed to the top of that list. Obviously, everyone's looking to make sure that their businesses are still in a healthy place. And it's particularly when it comes to direct-to-consumer brands, a lot of their number one priority is that sale and conversion. That's the reason they work with influencers. But brand awareness and reach has always been a huge one.
Great. Okay, question number three. How interested are you in working with influencers considering the current climate and stay-at-home orders? 38%, the top results say more. Again, probably not surprising. I mean, it's as we talked before, it's this is certainly a time that with kind of traditional advertising kind of at a slow pace, a lot of retail establishments closed, that influencers have engaged online communities. We're seeing same at 33%, Only 13% say less. 16% say they have no interest in working with influencers. There's always going to be that group, of course. Okay, back to this kind of touches on a question we brought up earlier, and that is, which type of influencers are you most interested in working with? 38% say micro influencers, so that smaller set of, we defined it as 2,000 to 50,000 followers. And then tied for first is macro influencers, those between 50 and 1 million followers. Interestingly, mega influencers with over 1 million followers is only at 7%. Is that a surprising result?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the macro certainly feels on par. I mean, we don't necessarily dub them macro. It's more like our mid-tier influencer, and we have a very, very, very healthy business based on those folks because they're kind of a mix of both. There's the reach. I mean, 750, 800,000 followers is certainly nothing to sneeze at. But their engagement is strong, their conversion is strong, their story views are strong. People are showing up for their content. And they still have that sort of connection with their audience the way a micro does. On the mega side, I would say that, sometimes a lot of it comes down to budget and access to those kinds of influencers. A lot of them are maybe also more focused on their own businesses and their own brand building as opposed to working with other third parties. They might not be as readily coming to the table for those opportunities. But that macro space is really strong. And like I said, micros add a lot of value. They definitely have a place in this ecosystem. It's just not a business for us.
Okay, platforms. Which platform most interests you today for increasing brand awareness and reaching potential customers? Instagram, the big winner at 40%. TikTok second, YouTube third, Facebook fourth.
Well, I'm not surprised by Instagram, and I'm glad to see that TikTok is not trailing too far behind. I think that brands are still trying to figure out TikTok, and they're very uncertain. They're a little risk averse right now, and obviously, TikTok has a few. It's missing a direct link out. There's no swipe up. There's no way to track sort of any sort of results, conversion data, anything like that. So people are a little bit hesitant about spending dollars in that area, but I know that that's going to quickly change. We're seeing such an increased appetite for that platform. We've been signing a lot of TikTok native talent, as well as obviously, developing that platform for some of our homegrown talent. So I think that number will definitely increase in the coming months.
Terrific. Okay, we have a couple more minutes left before we close out the show. David Watts asked the question. He's making an assumption here about Quibi, but would Quibi have been more successful, had a more successful launch, and be more successful overall if they'd relied more on influencers than high-priced A-listers who don't really want to promote Quibi 24/7?
I'd like to think so, yes. The downfall of Quibi is they didn't give me a call. No.
You guys didn't get a call from Quibi?
No, we did not get a call from Quibi. Yeah, no, I mean, they really aimed for a certain type of talent, caliber of talent. And I mean, that's a great point. I mean, those folks are not necessarily, they don't necessarily even have that kind of a connection with their audience in which to promote something genuinely and get somebody excited about something. So, I think they should definitely reevaluate their strategy and focus a little bit more on influencer. I mean, the way that, even the Snapchat has, they've really pivoted, and we have been pumping out a lot of really amazing original series from that platform, which has kind of helped it resurrect itself from the dead. They have their fair share of traditional celebrity, but a lot of the most popular shows that they're putting out there are influencer led.
All right, everybody working with Quibi, get in touch with Vanessa. Okay, I think we're at the end of the show. Vanessa, fantastic having you. Really enjoyed the conversation. Wish you all the best in these times, and we hope to have you back in the future.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
And folks, tomorrow is our Business of Games Day. We have Michael Sy, who's a researcher at Interpret. He'll be with Michael Vorhaus, and they're going to be talking about trends in kids entertainment, looking at some of the platforms like Roblox and Minecraft, some of the metaverse plays, Fortnite, and what's going on in that space. So stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Thanks, Vanessa.
Digital transformation has never been more important. Built natively on the Salesforce platform, Velocity delivers industry-specific cloud and mobile software that embed digital omni-channel processes. Velocity Media and Entertainment provides a complete industry solution across the subscriber and advertising sales lifecycles to fully empower both B2C and B2B digital customer engagement. Learn more at velocity.com.